chair.
Well, that could be it too.
All right, let me just see if this is on Patreon. Okay. The curtains are up and the lights are on and they're playing our old song. Okay, so we can use that one then instead. And let me get that set up there. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, I can't hear you, which means I need to switch over to, yes, that's right. Dynamic.
Is this where I start singing?
No, please don't.
I'm so sad and lonely.
Keep talking though, because I do the Gettysburg Address so that I can set your levels.
Oh my gosh, 47 years ago, our forefathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
Keep going.
And now I need my notes.
Now we are engaged in the Great Civil War.
After that I need my notes. Well, fifth grade was a long, long time ago.
Yeah, it was. All right, here, give me it again. I was pressing the wrong button.
Okay, so 47 years ago, our forefathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
Yep, keep going. Go until I tell you to stop.
Well, okay, so let's try something else.
Now we are engaged in the Great Civil War, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure.
Something about a great battlefield and new birth of freedom.
We are met on a great battlefield of that war. All right, let's see.
And you know how I usually tell it?
How?
I said, look, I'm not going to do the whole resuscitation for you, right? But I want you to think about this. The speech tells us where we came from 47 years ago. It tells us where we're at on a great battlefield. And it tells us where we want to go, new birth of freedom. It's funny, I'm not...
It's one of the best...
Gotcha.
I muted myself so I could hear you better.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's one of the best speeches ever written.
It is.
And anybody who says otherwise...
and there's another point here, too. There are, and talking to friends that are guides, and even seeing that myself, there are folks that come here, they don't even know there was a battle here. They just know the speech was here.
Yeah.
It's a whole different dynamic of what, they're doing, They're going to, maybe their trip is Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia, and then Gettysburg. That one. Right.
Yeah, yeah. It's disturbing how little people know of just about anything. That's all right. All right. There we go.
Every once in a while, my truck fails. Sounds like that too.
Your truck? Oh. I'll move this out of the way. Great. There we go. Kenny unobstructed. And I don't care to do that. Okay. All right. I'm ready if you're ready. Ken, are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. Let's do this thing here.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And today, we are talking with our old pal, Ken Rich. Ken has been on many times to talk about various things regarding the history of the town, civilians, hospitals. We did one on the fighting in town, if I recall.
July 2nd, 3rd, yeah.
Yeah, we did a ton of stuff with Ken, and the town is a very untapped resource, I think. Not everybody that studies the battle really knows a lot about the town's folk, the town's people, whatever. what went on in the town. They kind of glaze over that and then move on to the battlefield, or at least that's what I did.
Right.
Long
and some
ago.
of that goes, it initiates with the tours too. The guides and the rangers, they do a great job, but they only have maybe an hour or 2 hours to catch your attention.
Right.
And so the town has to be glossed over. There was a retreat, folks lived there, and all of a sudden we're on Little Round Top. That's pretty much how that goes. And that's an interesting part of it. But at the same time, and today what I wanted to talk about was, what was the cost to the civilians from the Civil War?
Well, so I was going to get there, Ken. You got to
Okay,
let the host do the hosting.
Okay, hosting, sorry.
All right, so one of the things we don't talk about, as Ken and I were discussing beforehand, is that we know all about the soldiers who came here. But what about the people from here who became soldiers and went elsewhere? We know, what is it? Is it the 13th PA? What was Company K in?
1st Pennsylvania Reserves.
Pennsylvania. So
that should be 30th.
30th. So the 30th PA, or the 1st Pennsylvania Reserves, had Company K. They were from here. There were some guys from the 87th that were here. Right. That were from here. Not all of them came back here, though. The 87th wasn't here. And so there's plenty of other Gettysburg sons who went off to fight in other parts of the war. I'm sure maybe some even in the Navy.
I don't have that.
Well, but maybe. I mean, right?
It's probably
it had
possible.
to be, right?
All right,
Who knows? Who knows? So that's what we're talking about today. Right.
And so we take a look at this, and when we say, well, what was the cost of Gettysburg? Everybody's mind goes automatically to the time period after the battle.
Yes.
Right. And of course, we talked hospitals and the damage to the town and so on. But the Civil War had already been going on for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And then if I just take it back to a step and put you in the mind of the townspeople in Gettysburg, so it's 1860, 1861. Congress. Imagine that. It's a lock. It's a log jam. Mm-hmm. It's divided north and south. Nothing gets passed. All right. We come around to the election in 1860. Abraham Lincoln's elected as a Republican, realizing that the Gettysburg area has Thaddeus Stevens, and a lot of the people in town are Republicans and following him. Right. All right. And so now there's going to be a war. And oh my gosh, it's going to last 30 days. It's going to last 90 days. Who knows? We need to join right away. Right. Okay. And then it's going to go on, and there's going to be one battle after another. And I want to say this, mm-hmm. as far as and a friend did the research, as far as we can tell right now, none of the soldiers from Gettysburg who were killed during the war, there was no announcements in the newspaper. And I don't know if that's for morale. I don't understand that. But so far, that's, at this point, I haven't found anything that reaches that point.
That is interesting.
Okay. So now, when I go through this, and I want to talk about the monument first, but when you're thinking about this, all right, and we talk about, we got these early casualties. Let's say, all right, so Lieutenant Alexander Bauger, all right. Well, his father is president of the college, and he is going to be the first one that I have that dies in the Civil War, and he will be mortally wounded at Shiloh. On 5/16/62. Just a whole year without. Now they've had a couple of illnesses. Okay. But everybody got sick, so they're not. It's not.
They're used to that.
It's not a battle loss per se. A 20-year-old dies or something around here. That's kind of normal.
Right.
As bizarre as that seems to us today, this healthy young adult passes away. Yeah. And so this is happening. But the first one that's killed in the battle is Alexander Bauer. He's a lieutenant. Now, interestingly enough, he's not in the Pennsylvania unit. He's in Company B of the 45th Illinois. All right?
So what was
And-
it? He was born and raised here and then moved to Illinois?
I find there's a couple of businessmen here in town.
Uh-huh.
Harvey Sweeney comes up, that have property out on the frontier.
Okay.
What's the frontier? Illinois and Minnesota.
Yeah, right.
All right, and so we're going to have soldiers out there. Now, just like today, when something happens, is all your family in town?
No.
No. I mean, somebody's got a business trip, somebody's visiting their in-laws in Texas, whatever the case may be.
Somebody's in the service.
Right, sure. I mean, there are all these reasons for them not to be around.
Right.
And so when this conflict happens, people join wherever they were. One of the Meals boys, they have a stone yard on York Street where Lee's Buffet is today.
Oh, really?
Right, and so they sold tombstones. And, of course, their competition was Powers, right?
Powers Hill, yeah,
right. Okay,
yeah.
so to get better business, one of the boys is down in Baltimore trying to sell tombstones to the two big cemeteries down there, right? And, newspaper bulletin alerts, newsboys are out, and the Confederates have fired on Fort Sumter. So he goes and joins the artillery at Fort McHenry, becoming the first volunteer from the town of Gettysburg to join the Army.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? Day
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Right? So they're everywhere, and they join, and that leads us back to Bowger, and that he is out in Illinois, business for his dad or whatever, and joins that unit, which leads him to Shiloh.
Okay.
All right, and so Bloody Shiloh is the first wound here, and then I have to put myself in the mind of this, so I kind of understand where everybody's at, and there's been the phony war, right? This from Bull Run to Shiloh. I mean, there's conflict everywhere,
Right.
but there's no catastrophe. There's nothing that really hits them, and Shiloh does. Now here, it's not in a newspaper. So what are the neighbors saying? Did you hear? Professor Boucher, his son was killed. Right? And she goes, oh my gosh, no, not him. I liked him so much, Alexander. And that's going house to house, maybe clothesline to clothesline as the ladies are talking. I mean, really, right? As everybody's going about their chore.
Yeah.
All right, and so
he's the first death. From
he's the
Gettysburg.
first death in the war, first combat death.
That would make the rounds, I'm sure.
Right, the first
rather
combat
quickly.
death. Now I have another one that is going to be just a couple of weeks later. Well, let's do this, okay? Let's hold on that. I'll go back to the deaths part of it, and I want to talk about something else. We drive past this on Middle Street, right? And there's a brick building, and there's a monument out front. And if we know it, it's the GAR Hall.
Yeah.
All right, and at the time of the Civil War, it's the Methodist Church.
Okay.
All right, and the monument out front is where I'm going to get my names from, and where I'm going to start my journey, my search. There's 168 names on there.
So now let's sit on this for a second. So this monument, because I remember you telling me about this years ago. The monument has all who died from Gettysburg in the war, except.
Well, there's a couple things. I found a couple of exceptions. All right, but the major exception is going to be the African Americans. Right, those that joined the U.S. colored troops. And Adams County Historical Society did a good chart on those, so I can go back and get their names, all right, and tag them into other families around town. But there's some more that aren't on there also, and I find that kind of odd. But that must have something to do with who is at the GAR at the time and what information they're gathering.
Okay.
All right, exception. All right, one of them that's not on there is Henry Clay Sweeney.
Okay.
All right. First off, Henry Clay.
Names. Yeah. Right.
Okay. Henry Clay Sweeney. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Harvey Sweeney owns
Sweeney's Tavern.
Right. Okay, which is now the Farnsworth House. All right. So
now the building that Sweeney's Tavern is in was not here during the battle, correct? Just the Farnsworth House.
The house, just the house. Yeah, and you can see
there was a building in the beer garden, but it's not there anymore.
Right, and there's plenty of pictures.
Yeah.
Of what that looked like, and you can I would imagine you could probably find a picture every 10 years of that building.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I've seen like 4 or 5 of them that I use every once in a while.
Yeah.
All right, fine. So here's another one. Henry Clay Sweeney. He musters in with the 4th Illinois Cavalry. He's in Illinois, and he and his brother are out there. His dad has something going on out there, and they're out there, on the frontier. The unit boarded boats to Cairo, Illinois, heading to battle. He was in the battles at Fort Henry, Baltimore in my head, Fort Donelson, Shiloh, and then heading south toward Pittsburgh in Moscow, Tennessee. Who knew that Moscow was in Tennessee?
I didn't.
Right?
I thought it was in Russia.
Yeah. He's guarding a railroad bridge and looking for a rebel train. He was mistakenly shot by his own troops.
Oh.
All right, so he's shot by accident. All right, he would have been 18 years old that July.
So he was 17?
Yeah.
And he was killed.
Right. He was buried in the Moscow, Tennessee cemetery, and then transferred to the Memphis National Cemetery. Again, and it's marked, and I have the markings on his graves and so forth.
Huh.
And plot numbers, his plot number is 970. So when I go through this, there's a couple places I'm going to go. All right, so I'm going to use Ancestry and find a grave. All right, let's get open the door. Interestingly enough, York County and the York County Historical Society, and they kept a record not only of soldiers from York County in the war, but also some from Adams County. So I can find most of these boys in the York County registry. Mm-hmm. There's like an index card that says who they were, where they came from. And then Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, also had an index card on each of the Civil War soldiers in the state of Pennsylvania. So I can go back and look and find that. All right. Now, and remember that, it's 1860 spelling.
Right.
Okay.
Of course, yeah.
So there's some challenges there to go find that. All right. But the Methodist Church, and I talked with a ranger friend when he was looking into this. He says, for more than a decade, I walked past that church every day, and I wondered about what happened to those boys on the monument.
Yeah.
Why were their names there? Now, the Methodist Church history, the building that's there today is built in 1822. It was consecrated in November. That's 53 East Middle Street. It's the oldest church building in town, if I have that right. It's the second building for the congregation. So they had a wooden church someplace else.
Okay.
All right. And
out of town?
Someplace else in town, and actually it might even been on that same lot.
Okay.
All right. The story's going to be that the congregation grows. All right. It's the second building for the congregation. At the time of the battle, it's Reverend Bergstrasser.
Great name.
All right. And Bergstrasser lived on Baltimore Street across from the Pierce house.
Okay.
Right. His daughter, the artillery shell goes through.
Right? Yeah.
So that house is marked.
It's an Airbnb now.
Right. Okay. And of course, during the battle, he was at the church.
Right.
All right. Now, also, and there's a question on this, we actually know that some of the Sisters of Charity were operating out of the Methodist Church. And maybe it's even the headquarters for them. Right, but I'm not, so I have to put a question mark behind that. That's entirely possible. All right, but again, anybody that knows a nun, when they walk into a building, they take over any place. So that's like their headquarters no matter what.
Right.
All right, they're in charge.
Now, the Methodist Church today is on High Street.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah.
Across from St. Francis?
Yeah, there's a Methodist church there. And but the building, when they outgrow this building after the Civil War, I think the county's using the building now. Would it have been a building down the street, i.e., west of the current location and across the street, there's a parking lot. I think that's where that location would have been.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. And again, and I always say this, it's entirely possible I make a mistake today.
Sure.
And I'm sure somebody will let me know.
We're only human.
Yeah, I know. That part of it. Something else about that church, too. United Methodist Church and Methodist Church, and then AME Church. All right, so the Methodist Church here was probably the only congregation before the war that had mixed, it was biracial.
Okay.
Right, that there would have been African Americans attending that church. All right, there would have been another congregation in town, but I'm not sure. I think sometimes they were meeting at St. James, interestingly enough, and also I had 1 or 2 school locations, right, that part of it. But that gets tied into some of the story. And just a side note, as Ken goes down another tangent, right? So that's where we have the picture of the church, and then the hospital side of it. In 1874, they move, I guess, across the street. I think that's the location. All right, and in 1880, the GAR post buys the old building. All right, it's going to be the Corporal Johnson Scully post, number 9. All right, so GAR, Grand Army of the Republic, number 9. That's obviously that's an early post. All right, of the veterans from Adams County are going to join that. There's a lot of names that we're going to use over and over again, telling our stories, whether they be soldiers or civilians in town, hospital sites, and so on. And these men, those names are there. We're going to hear the names over and over again, right? The post started in 1867, 2 years after the war. 2 years after the war, we needed an alumni association. Right?
Yeah.
Take care of each other.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. They purchased a hall for $600, which has to be big dollars in
Back then,
1880. Yeah. All right.
So they bought that building for $600.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I have. All right. Now, the monument out front. The monument out front is dedicated in 1892 on February 22nd. All right, so 222. I don't know what the significance of that is.
I don't know.
All right. In 1918, another use for the building, the GAR allows the Army to use it as a morgue for the Spanish influenza.
Oh.
Spanish flu. That's one of the locations they use as a morgue.
Huh.
Okay. 1930, it becomes the Sons of Union Veteran Camp 112. All right. 1988, historic Gettysburg, Adams County gets the building. Now let's talk about the monument, because that's the focus. And there's a couple of pictures, and I didn't find any of the old pictures for today's program, but they're out there. And we'll notice there's 2 lions there. There's 2 cannon. All right. The 2 cannon are made in a local foundry by a Gettysburg veteran.
Oh, okay.
Right, that makes them, and they've been moved around. Now, where they get the monument, where are they going to get that from? Well, it's Pennsylvania and their fugal, right? So it is going to be somebody else's discard. All right. That monument was originally made for and intended for the 2nd New York Cavalry Monument to go next to the Pennsylvania Monument, Huey's Brigade.
Oh, interesting.
All right, now.
Yeah.
All right, and here's what I have on this. There is no piece of paper that says we bought it from them.
Right.
All right, but you go out there, the 2 monuments are shaped the same. All right, now the rumor is that they didn't like the quality of the stone. Okay. But the monuments are shaped the same. All right. If you go on the front of the monument, walk up there today, park, pay your quarter, park at it, and look. You look real close. There's 3 holes on the front that form a triangle, and that is the same thing for the New York seal.
Oh.
That's where the New York seal sat. The holes are there, right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay? On the back, if you look at the monument out there, there is a bronze plaque on the back, 4 corners. On the back of the monument at the GR Hall is 4 holes. That size.
Huh.
Okay?
And the 4 holes are for what?
For the plaque, the bronze plaque.
So where the plaque? Okay.
Yeah. So they have.
So why is it 3?
3 holes for the New York seal on the
it's
front.
Round.
Right. And 4 holes for the square plaque or
Got it.
rectangular. Okay. Geometrically challenged.
Yeah.
Right?
No. Yeah. Me too.
Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is added on there after 1912. The Lions were moved after 1912, so we have that. All right, so that's the story of that. And of course, folks are walking by, and I have, I must have been that annoying first grader that says why.
Yeah, me too.
And so,
me too.
so yeah, I'm going by and why, and so I got the opportunity, so I started looking at it. All right, and I had the resources, so I go a little bit further. I asked a couple of friends where else I can find that. Right, and so so I go get this information. Now, I'm not going to be able to go through all of them today. But I just want to get the impact across of what this cost these civilians.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So we started out already. We talked about Lieutenant Bolger. All right.
Yep.
And then for the Eastern campaigns, the 7 Days campaign in Fair Oaks. All right. Now, we got Private Andrew Caslett, Frederick Huber. Right. We just mentioned him. All right, and Edward Wirt.
Well, I think we just mentioned him before we started, the audience doesn't know.
Right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's tell Dr. Huber's son's story.
All right, okay. So first off, Dr. Huber, Huber, lived on a corner of York and Washington, the southeast corner. All right, I think it was just a brewery, and now it's a store.
That York in Washington is not an intersection.
I'm sorry.
Chambersburg,
Washington.
Yeah. So it's that white building.
Yeah, it's a building on the corner. No, it's not the white building. Other side of the street.
Okay.
The brick
where
building
the brewery
is there.
was.
Right, okay.
Yeah. What is it now? Next to Ernie's Texas Wieners.
Right, yeah. And it just opened up some kind of novelty store there.
Okay.
All right, I should pay more attention to it because I walk past it all the time.
Yeah, I should probably
Something else about that building, all right? So if you look up at the top, the three windows, and the top of the windows, the brick on the top is darker than the brick below the windows.
So that's the addition.
That's the Confederate artillery on July 1st.
Oh, that's the repair.
Confederate artillery knocked the front of that house off.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, Dr. Huber, all right, and of course it's 1860 Gettysburg, and there are 5 doctors in town. Across the street is Dr. Tate. He joins the Army, so he's not here.
Right.
All right, Dr. Huber. All right. We have the county doctor, and then we have the 2 brothers, Dr. Horners, across the street.
Okay. So that's like Dr. Central there.
Oh, yeah, really, right? And so he's probably one, and, and I picture this buggy like you see in the old movies. He's got the one-horse buggy as he goes out to tend to women having children, on the farms and so on. And then 7 days happens. And his son, Sergeant Frederick Huber, so his son's already a sergeant, right? And he's killed at Fair Oaks. He's buried there. Interestingly enough, his grave is marked. That's not going to happen for a lot of these boys. When Dr. Huber finds out, he'll drive that buggy to Richmond, 150 miles, right, in a one-horse buggy. Exhume his son. Bring his son back to Gettysburg. Does he make 10 miles a day with that? Right?
Right.
All right, so we're 15 days out.
Because all those roads are not good roads.
Oh, no, this is dirt heaven.
Yeah. Right.
And with that said, his wife wants to have an open casket funeral.
Yeah, that's disturbing.
The story is that she actually kissed him on the forehead.
Gross, lady.
He's buried in Evergreen Cemetery, July 2nd, sometime after 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Confederate artillery opens up on Cemetery Hill.
Yeah.
The Union guns are in the cemetery.
Right.
With that said, a shell hits his tombstone.
Yeah.
The president of the cemetery, Dave McConaughey, will reach out to Dr. Hoover and say, Doc, don't worry about it. We'll replace your son's tombstone. Dr. Hoover says, no, I don't want you to do that. I want you to see how terrible, everybody to see how terrible war is.
Yeah.
Right? So that's his story. But now you think about it. Right down the street, we've had 1 death.
Yeah.
And now we've got 3 more deaths in town. And everybody's talking about it. And, oh, my gosh, the poor Hoobers, they lost their son. And the Bowgers, too. Not realizing what was coming.
Right.
Right. And then, so that's Fair Oaks. All right. Within the same week, Mechanicsville, Craig Fenmore, right, with Totsky. All right. He is in Company K. Well, there's going to be several of them.
Yeah.
All right. Interestingly enough, there are 4 Witotsky brothers that joined the Army.
Really?
They are all 4 today buried in Evergreen.
Oh, wow.
And if you look and you find the tombstones, their name is spelled 3 different ways.
Really?
Yeah.
Were all 3 of them in Company K?
I don't think so.
Okay.
All right. I have that someplace else. Maybe
So
I'll
there
get
you
back
go.
there.
3 brothers. Well, they
4
might not
brothers.
have joined at the same time.
Right. 4
Yeah.
brothers that are
Yeah.
there. Okay.
Yeah.
And so now we're starting seeing, the first sacrifice is 4 boys went away.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Company K. Maverick Hill, John Finley Bailey, also Company K. So Company K is right involved in this whole 7 days campaign.
Mm.
All right. Now, the other ones, Cassette, his house was on the Tawnytown Road, and I don't know if it's the same building, but across from the maintenance center today. One of the houses there,
Oh, yeah.
farmhouse,
Okay. Yeah.
that was his house, where his family's house was. And Hoover and then Ward. All right. Cassette and Ward were in the 101st Pennsylvania, and Hoover was in the 23rd Pennsylvania. All right.
Okay.
And we go along then. Okay, so we get a break, and then Second Bull Run happens. All right, so we now have another major battle. Company K, 20th New York Militia. All right, so we have John Ross Horner. There's Ross families and Horner families in Gettysburg. John Ross Horner, and he's in New York, and he joins the 20th New York State Militia, which becomes the 80th New York, which is the Ulster Guard, and their monument is out on the First Day Field.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Right? So that's he joins there.
That's Biddle's Brigade?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's what they are.
On the south end of Reynolds Avenue.
That was I'm remembering the regiment, but I don't remember which end he's on. I think if it's Ulster, I think it's right. I think it's Biddle.
It's by
Somebody will correct me.
yeah. it's by McPherson's Woods, just south
Right,
of McPherson's
exactly.
Woods. Yeah, that's Biddle's Brigade.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
Then Leesburg. All right, so after Second Molasses.
Molasses?
Yeah, Second Manassas.
You've been hanging out with Cam too long.
I know. It's having a rough morning starting here. Sorry about that. And there'll definitely be a comment on that one. All right, so the armies are headed toward Antietam. They just don't know it yet.
Right.
All right. And at Leesburg, Private George Crease is killed. He's in Cole's Cavalry. Company C Cole's Cavalry.
Okay.
All right, Cole's Cavalry is supposed to be a Maryland unit, but because they are recruited in Emmitsburg, even then, Emmitsburg's just a short walk away.
Right.
So friends go with friends.
Right.
All right, in that part of it. So we'll see some other Cole's Cavalries on this. Then, all right, so what happens before Antietam? South Mountain. All right, and then South Mountain and Antietam, we combine that. Company K loses 4 more men. Miller, Naylor, and Sadler, and Climb. K-E.
L-I-M.
Oh, no, sorry.
K-L-I-M-E.
K-E-I-M is how they're going to spell it. Clem.
What?
K-E-I-M. Clem.
Keim?
Keim. Well, it's German, so you're probably right.
There's no L in there.
No.
So Keim.
Yeah. All right. And then, so that's going to be
Wait,
Antietam.
say it again?
K-E-I-M. Frederick Keim.
Keim.
All right. All Company K, 1st Pennsylvania Reserves.
Okay.
All right. So, so all these casualties now are coming back from the same company. Right? And worse yet, and I should point this out, Sadler is captain. He was a captain of Company K.
Okay.
Well, I think he's the one that starts out the company.
Oh, all right.
All right. And so here you got this attachment of everybody in the company to the captain. He's elected captain. At that point, he was elected captain. So that says something of prominence or importance or contact, for that to start out the war that way.
Mm-hmm. And he dies where?
He dies at Antietam.
At Antietam. Okay.
Right? And of course, he's going to get replaced, and we'll get to that. So anyway, if the story follows on,
sure,
that he's killed there, and then we have that break, we think, and then Fredericksburg. All right, and Fredericksburg we use a Corporal William Forney Farm, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right,
okay,
McLaughlin. All right, David McLaughlin. David Mondorf, M-O-N-D-O-R.
Mondorf.
Mondorf, right?
Never heard that.
And then Sailor, Matthias Sailor, Various regiments, 127 Pennsylvania, 126, 127th again, 107. But remember, too, there's this whole thing. When a company in a regiment gets in a hot spot, right? And then you start seeing, even though in Pennsylvania, it's typically a couple of towns in a regiment, not just one.
Mm-hmm.
All right? But each of those towns is going to take a beating. And we just saw that with Company K, through a couple of months, and now they're getting one message after another. And so now, I mean, what's that like at church? Everybody's, oh my gosh, not another one.
Right.
All right. And then, they just fought at Fredericksburg. Right. And so, where's my boy?
Yeah.
Where's my boy? So we get from Fredericksburg. All right. And then I mentioned Shiloh and Bowser. All right. And then, I like that Suffolk. All right. So, arguably, in my mind, one of the most interesting battles of the Civil War was Chancellorsville.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. You have to understand Chancellorsville, I think, to understand Gettysburg.
I
I
agree.
think there's a lot of lines that get drawn from there.
Sure.
Okay. So, the boys from Gettysburg weren't at Chancellorsville because Longstreet was gathering supplies in Southern Virginia. That's where they are. So we're going to get Private Isaac Newton McCain.
Okay.
All right. Now, and I'm not going to bother his name spelled. I can find him in the records 5 times. It's name spelled 4 ways.
Yeah.
All right. But in Gettysburg, his widow, Catherine, and their 4 little kids live next door to Georgia Wade.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right. And so he's killed in Suffolk in 5/9/1863.
Okay.
So just before the Battle of Gettysburg. And so now Catherine McCain, with 4 little ones, is now the widow McCain.
All right.
Right? We didn't talk too much about families for these boys so far, but
Yeah.
that's going to come up.
But you have to assume that these guys are leaving behind at least parents and siblings.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
If not wives and kids.
And actually, more in depth, I actually tracked down on whose family I can find, where they're buried at, and so on. So I have more details on them. It's just not enough time.
Yeah.
George Weissmattle. All right. 2nd Winchester. All right. That's also coming into Gettysburg.
Yep.
Right. Ewell's troops. All right. And that's going to be Carnes. And then, of course, who's going to die from his wounds?
Jack Skelly.
Right. All right. Then Gettysburg.
So that's the 87th PA, all those guys?
87 PA for that one. 165th.
Oh, okay.
All right. 165th is interesting. I think it's nicknamed is enlisted militia. Or, I'm sorry, drafted militia.
Oh.
So they're already formed, but they get drafted, right? But it doesn't seem right. I'm not sure how that's going to come from things, because the draft, everybody in the summer of 1863 in Gettysburg area is registering for the draft.
Right.
But this regiment's formed before that. So,
How are they drafted?
Yeah, so I don't know quite how that works, how Curtin works that out, right? That the unit's already formed, and so they are. Remember, Curtin also has this thing about the reserves.
Right.
Right? Abraham Lincoln says he wants 30 regiments, and the Pennsylvania has 60 regiments, and so they all become the reserves. Right? So you have that. Gettysburg is going to be William McGrew. Dies of his wounds.
Here.
He's Company K.
Yeah.
Now that is, and it's it's Minnick, Henry Minnick's company. Then Henry Minnick replaces the first one.
So there's only one dead
in the wheat field. All right, on July 2nd, between 4 and 9 o'clock, the 1st Pennsylvania Reserves, Company K from Gettysburg, and one boy is wounded and dies of his wounds. So Henry Minnick, he's got about 30 boys at that point with him. Okay, that tells you that that captain did a good job.
Yeah, I guess.
To get his boys out in one piece.
Or the Confederates were tired.
Well, it could be that too. What's left of those.
Yeah.
But the other one is, we have to go back before Gettysburg, and we should have mentioned this, and that's George Washington Sandow.
Yes.
All right, and so he is in Bell's Cavalry.
Right.
Which is going to become the 21st Pennsylvania Cavalry, but not till after Gettysburg. All right. And he and one of the Leitner boys
Yes.
are racing down Baltimore Street. And they're headed to the Benner farm because Leitner because they're going to jump Rock Creek. One of Leitner's uncles is renting a farm from the Benners, if my story's right. And so that's probably where they're going to hide there.
Might have a correction for you.
Okay.
So Bell's cavalry has a rendezvous point at Hanover.
Okay.
Okay. They're heading out on the Hanover Road. Leitner and Sando
Or headed that way.
They're going with them, and then they say,
Okay.
because Sando lives down on the Tawnytown Road.
Right.
And Leitner, I think, is down that way in some way or another.
There is a Leitner farm on the Benner farm.
Right. Oh, right. Okay. Well, but they're heading that way. They leave the group.
Right.
And head down and kind of basically go through Culp's Hill area, and you know where the monument is, right? You know. So around that point is where they encounter Whites Comanches, who they were coming down the Baltimore Pike, and these guys kind of intercepted. And Leitner was able to get away by jumping a fence, but Sando's horse wouldn't jump the fence.
Right.
And so Sando then pulled his revolver and fired, and then one of the Confederate troopers nailed him. Right. That's according to Britt Eisenberg. And I only know that because we literally just talked about it this morning.
Okay. and Britt's pretty good, so I'm going to take that for it.
Yeah.
We do have Elizabeth Thorne. Here's the shot that kills him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And up the road, we look a little further up the road, closer to where Rock Creek, is Sam Wade and a bunch of horses that are by their Pierces.
Right.
So it all gets in that, all bits and pieces of that
Yeah, they all
story.
get caught up in that little group down there.
But so the irony of this is the first soldier, the first boy killed at Gettysburg. It's a boy from Gettysburg.
Yeah.
I mean, they escaped. Company K and the others. 138th Pennsylvania is not there. 165th Pennsylvania is not there. So those are two big units.
Right.
And the 87th Pennsylvania, of course, they got shot up at Winchester. But again, where these Gettysburg boys are, they're not here. Those are, to me, that's the four big units that have Gettysburg boys in them.
You know, I wonder if someone found this as curious as I do, if somebody ever wanted to do the work of actually looking this up to see, pick any other town that there was a famous, like Sharpsburg, for example. Take Sharpsburg. Some of their sons who went off to fight and everything. How many of them made it back to Sharpsburg during the Battle of Sharpsburg?
Right.
And how many were on either side? Because I think what I find so fascinating about Gettysburg is, what do you have, 6 Confederates who were born and raised here?
Right, and I'm looking. I think there's another one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but again, it's one of the things where I saw something, a thread, and then in my usual rounds of efficiency, didn't write it down. So I know I'm going to find it again.
That's me with ideas. Yeah. I get an idea and I go, that's a good one. I'll never forget it. And then 10 minutes later, I forget it.
Where the heck did I find that? Where was that quote at? There's a quote I'm looking for, too.
Yeah.
Another quote.
Yeah.
But so you also, for example, you have Dr. Goldsboro in Hunterstown, who now joined the Army. His brother, he's in the Union Army. His brother is Major Goldsboro on Culp's Hill in the Confederate Army, right? And we'll go around here. There are more people in that army that are from maybe the Emmitsburg area.
So,
all right, okay, on both sides, the Confederate side.
So if you zoom out from Gettysburg and you don't just think of the town,
think of the
and
county,
you go to the area, because
yeah.
Hunterstown's right up the road.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And here you have a family that's from Baltimore. That doctor's there, he's Union, but he kind of was Baltimore. It's so odd. It's not odd to have one brother in the Union Army and one brother in the Confederate Army. That's kind of the norm.
Yeah, and now when you put it that way, where you zoom out and you don't just stick to town,
right?
There has to be at least a few more Confederate soldiers from the region,
right?
And that makes it even more curious to me that there's no story of any general officer calling on a local boy in the ranks to say, where do we go? What's the...
All right. So let me throw you a big one.
Yeah.
Dr. James Breathitt.
Okay.
better
The
known
battery
as,
guy?
better known as Major James Breathitt,
Uh-huh.
right? All right, that whole battery is from Frederick.
Right. Yeah.
All right, and I bet if I looked at names, you'd find farmer names here in the county.
Oh, probably.
Okay, yeah, I mean, there's so much, these, the families, and you have to go back to the earlier migrations. That's what when we go back, we like telling, like 1740 stories of the town because these are the first families that are coming here.
Yeah.
And some come from Baltimore to Frederick, Baltimore, Westminster, Frederick. Others come Hanover, York, Gettysburg.
Right.
Right, but the same names, right? Cousins and relatives and so on. And it's easier to track then. Everybody had a big family,
Yeah.
but there were less families.
Yeah. Right.
That's like I was researching Bennett's after the Civil War. They were in Gettysburg in 1860, 4 boys, and not in 1870. So how do I find 4 Bennetts in Pennsylvania in 1870?
Right. Where do they go?
Poof. Poof.
And how do you even know they went to Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Some might have gone elsewhere.
Arizona.
Yeah.
Seattle.
California.
Any of this stuff is possible.
Sure.
So, so to me, and I look at this stuff, so we know that there are troops with Stuart that know the area.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Whether he uses them or not, it's another story. I think he'd go talk to Breathitt.
Yeah.
Somewhere in this process, right? It's kind of odd that he finds like the Shriver house on the 29th.
Right.
And so there's got to be some there, and I know there's some.
Wait, what do you mean? Wait, go into that more.
Okay.
I'm sure somebody in the audience is like, "What the hell is he talking about?"
Yeah, I can again.
Yeah.
All right. So all right. The march to Gettysburg on June 29th. Stuart's cavalry is on the Baltimore Pike at Union Mills, and he stays at the Schreiber brothers' house, who is a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
They have a party. There's a dance that night. The next night, Kilpatrick's cavalry's there, and they stay across the street at the Republican brothers' house. Evidently, there's a party there too. I don't know if they use the same musicians or not.
Right.
Now,
are these related to the Shrivers here?
Yes. Right. It's the same family. And what's ironic about that is that when the 2 Schreiber brothers pioneer and settle Hunterstown, they started tannery business.
Mm-hmm.
In 1863, there's still tanners in Union Mills.
Huh.
They're still running a tannery business.
Huh.
And past that. So who knows when that stops without researching the family. But yeah, that's going to be Sergeant Schreiber, Kennedy's cabinet. That's going to be Maria Schreiber, and that's going to be Pam Schreiber, tennis star. That's all.
So wait, the Shrivers here at the.
That's all the same family. Yeah.
They're related to Maria Shriver.
Yes.
And really?
Yeah, they're all from the 2 settlers in Hunterstown. That's all those families. Now, at the time of the Battle of Gettysburg, George Schreiber has just gotten a house in town. It's just built or whatever a couple of years before. Mm-hmm. He's living on a farm outside of town. There's 4 or 5 farms. You look at the if you go to the Adams County map from 1858, or if you go to the Warren map from 1869, right? And look at the names. All right, there's 4 or 5 Shrivers floating around out there.
Yeah.
Right. Remember, there's also what's up, Shriver's Corner.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. No, Schreiber is very, very big name around here.
Right, and they're going to go. They're going to, they're going to filter into Maryland. I think that another family, and don't get this confused, but first settlers here, Black Cemetery. Those 2 brothers, I'm not going to remember their first names, but their family grows, and they're all over the place too. They own a trading post They owned a trading post by Mummersburg on the Mummersburg Road in the mountains.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, they buy the property from the Presbyterian Church, and then it's not the Presbyterian Cemetery anymore. It's Black Cemetery because they own the property.
Right.
Right. And
so the last name is Black.
Right. Yes. They're Scotch Irish.
Okay.
And they filter into Maryland too. Just there's 1 or 2 things with their name on it also.
Trying to remember, you're drawing a blank on the first names.
Yeah, I have to go back.
Yeah, because I remember you told me this story too, and I'm trying to remember too. Well, it's not important.
Yeah. That when I go back to those first 40 names, Sweeney's amongst them. That's a family that was here then.
Sure.
Weinbrenner.
Yep. Weinbrenner's Run.
They're all here. They're all here 100 years before the battle.
Right.
Right.
What's so interesting though is I wonder this So, are you familiar with Tom McMillan's book about Fort McHenry that he put out last year?
I know I haven't got that yet.
Okay, so he put out a book called Our Flag Was Still There. And he talks about Major Armistead.
All right, and his wife comes up here.
Yes.
Yes.
And
right.
so I didn't know that. And it just made me think, like, is it just because we study Gettysburg so much that when you hear these little things, you think that Gettysburg is more special than just a place where there was a battle?
Yeah.
Or if you studied any town as much as we study Gettysburg, would you find those strange coincidences?
Right. And, one of the earlier programs that I used to do was Marylanders at Gettysburg. And I used to draw those lines with those same names and what the connection is as they come into Pennsylvania for whatever reason.
Right. Well, and you think about it, too. I mean, especially Maryland, like that the Shrivers were down there isn't so crazy. Like, we're 10 miles from the border.
No.
Right. And I mean, I have friends in Maryland I go and spend, a couple hours with in a day. It's a quick little drive. I mean, obviously for them, it wasn't a quick little drive. But my point is that it's all very close together.
What is the, let's see, east of town and the housing development there and the water, I'm trying to think of it, it was actually at the time of the battle was the Deal family farm. And now it's in the housing development.
Oh, Amblebrook?
No, it's east of town on Baltimore Pike.
On the York Pike.
No, on Baltimore. I'm sorry. Okay, so south of Baltimore, south town. So what's with the Sheetz gas station?
Yeah.
All right.
Lake Heritage.
Lake Heritage. Okay. The Deal family is from Baltimore.
Right.
All right. There's a direct line to them to the family. Philadelphia. Some family goes this way and some goes to Baltimore, but it's the same family.
Yeah,
I did that.
It's just, and that's interesting too, Lake Heritage, because that was just all farmland.
Right.
And it's just flat. Like, Route 15 wasn't there. Like, it's just hard to imagine the way that looked back. There was
a dirt road and a stream.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
White's Run. And of course, 5th Corps uses that road.
Yep.
We believe. And we have other connections to the run that's there that's obviously not there anymore. Or at least hidden. But let's go back to this for a second.
Okay.
All right, since we're talking about runs, mine run. All right, so now we're in the end of 1863, and now we get the 138th Pennsylvania. They get in a tight spot, and so now remember we've had 4 with Antietam. There are 4 guys from town that died in Antietam, right? Mine run. We don't even think about that. If they mentioned mine run on a guy test, I would freak out. It's such a small thing, right?
Yeah.
All right, so Eppelman, Henning, Hertz, Looking Bill, Ogden. Oh, Ogden. His dad is on the Rose Farm.
Okay.
Okay. And Slagle. All right. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boys die at Mine Run. What's with that?
Yeah.
Right? And so now, they felt like, oh my gosh, all our boys survived Gettysburg. Right?
Right.
And they get killed at Mines Run. And then one more, and my third George Washington of the day. So I had George Washington Shriver, George Washington Sandow, George Washington Beck, and he's in 101st, Pennsylvania. And he's killed in Plymouth, North Carolina, as the Union Army tries to take the coast of North Carolina. And all those failed, things. So he's killed there. And now the war's serious, right?
Now it's serious.
Right? After that Christmas, there's not going to be any letters to those boys. They're not coming home, all right? And so now we come up to May of 1864.
Okay.
The Wilderness.
Oh, yes.
All right? Bysucker's Woods, Croniger, Dixon, Eldon, Schultz Woods. Schultz House, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lenin, Slayball, Warren. Okay?
Right.
All right, that's just the Wilderness, right? So what I should have put numbers down here already on some of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the Wilderness. All right? What's going to happen next week? Cold Harbor.
Oh, boy.
All right? Now, Cold Harbor, we're going to get cavalry action 21st PA is going to take casualties. 138th Pennsylvania gets thrown in again. They just got beat up at Fredericksburg. I mean, at Mine Run, rather, right? They just got beat up at Mine Run. And then the 87th Pennsylvania gets thrown in that also. So you have 21st Pennsylvania, 138th Pennsylvania, and 87th Pennsylvania, and they're all at Cold Harbor, right? Cavalry action and other activities there. And now the names. And some of them, you know, if you read the names on some of the houses, right?
Yeah.
Beck, Bettler, Bram, Conrad, Fell, Kitzmiller.
Kitzmiller, I've seen that name.
Oh, yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So Anna Garlich marries, I think, his brother after the war. Okay. Mickey. All right. Now, Mickley. All right.
Mickley, I know Mickley.
Okay. Peter Mickley. All right. His mom's farm and his uncle's farm out by Seven Stars.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah.
Were used as hospital sites.
Okay.
All right. So here he is. He's at Gettysburg.
Yeah.
And his house is used as a hospital site. He sees all of this. There's 500 wounded Confederates laying in the yard, a few buried there. He enlists.
Really?
And a year later, he's killed at Cold Harbor.
Oh, you should have stayed home, Mickley.
You know? Murray. All right, now here's another one. All right. Isaac Sheeds.
Oh, we know Sheeds is.
All right, okay, so this is going to be the uncle to Carrie.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
All right. Carrie's dad's younger brother. So we get all these three triangles, all right? So
Yeah.
but the triangle comes in. All right, when Sheeds, Myers, Culp, they're all cousins. They're all intermarried in some way, shape, or form, those
Yep.
three families.
Sheeds, Myers, Culps.
Right, and that's
Okay.
why if you look at Evergreen Cemetery, they're all in the same
Yeah,
plot
they're all around there. Yeah.
with one empty space. We left another death at Gettysburg out, Wesley.
Oh, Wesley.
Wesley Culp,
Yeah, Wes
right?
can't go in the family plot. Or is he secretly there?
That's right. Drama, suspense,
Oh,
mystery.
we don't even know.
Okay. Now, here's another death there. Captain Thaddeus Stevens Pfeiffer. All right.
Huh.
Okay, so their farmhouse, Pfeiffer Farms, 4 boys in. Their dad is a minister and best friends with Thaddeus Stevens.
Wait, you say when the farmhouse is 4 doors in where?
No, sorry. Their farmhouse is, and I'll have to go back and look up the township on it. It's definitely east of Gettysburg.
Okay,
All
not
right,
in
It's
Gettysburg.
in Adams. It's Adams. Of course, he's named Thaddeus Stevens. He's a captain of Company I, 87 Pennsylvania.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So again, local boys.
Yep.
All right. And there are 4 Pfeiffer boys in the Army. 4 brothers. Okay. Now, Toot, Toot.
Toot Piper?
Yeah. No. But and so again, Cold Harbor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Pifers.
11 soldiers killed at Cold Harbor.
Oh, from Gettysburg.
Captain Piper's one of them, and he's a captain of Company I, 87 Pennsylvania.
How many total boys from Gettysburg?
168 at least.
At least.
Right? And I think that we're going to get with, off the top of my head, 11, 10, 12 African American.
Okay.
All right. I think that there are 2 Confederates killed at least.
2 Confederates who fought from Gettysburg initially.
They were killed in the war.
Yeah.
One is Wesley,
Obviously.
and the other,
Skippy.
no, lived on Baltimore Street. His wife and child died. They're buried in Evergreen. He goes out to Tennessee, and
So before the war, that
right
all
before
happened?
the war, right? So he lived there, and who is it?
I don't know the story.
William Mowry.
Nope.
All right, and he lived in Gettysburg. He leaves right before the Civil War. He's in Tennessee. He's a sergeant in Company C, 49 Tennessee, killed at Franklin.
Okay. Oh, all right.
All right,
Oh,
so
geez.
he at least lived in Gettysburg for a while.
Right.
I'm not sure if he was born here or not.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right,
So he
but-
lived here for a
he lived-
while, and then his wife and kids died.
Of
and-
typhoid, and so he leaves.
yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing worth staying
Blamed
here for.
Lincoln and left.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, and then Spotsylvania Courthouse. All right, so now we're going to get 4 more. Dewey, Martz, Martz.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
and then Shipley and Staub.
Shipley. There's a lot of Shipley.
Right, and
plumbing
Staub,
and heating, I think, or something.
Yeah.
Cooling and heating.
But Staub Farm, the Staub Farm is out on the Emmitsburg Road to the south of the Spangler Farm. Don't understand.
Oh.
It's that rough plot that they have out there. That's where their farm stood. All right. Then Petersburg, Eldon, that family loses several. Iser, Lotz, Martin, Reinhardt, their family's houses on East Cave.
Okay.
Francis Stolley.
Stolley. Wait.
The editor's son.
Okay.
For the compiler.
Yeah.
The editor's son. And then Steinhauer. I've mentioned his brother, Simon Steinhauer.
That's
all right. So we get that. Monocacy.
So you're saying this was James you're talking about?
Yeah, James I talked about earlier.
Well, no, that was in the back you talked about. Tell James' story, because that's an interesting one. It's a sad one.
All right, yeah. Okay, and so it's like Kenny, how did you miss that?
Nah, you got a lot of stuff in front of you.
So Steinhauer is...
James Steinhauer.
James Steinhauer. All right.
Jimmy, his friends called him affectionately.
Just a second here. James enlists 1861. And he is in the 87th Pennsylvania, I think Company I. And survives. Now it's time to re-enlist. But at that point, I guess, you say, well, we'll give you a couple weeks home if you re-enlist.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes home to Gettysburg. Now remember, he's been in infantry for 2 years. He survived Antietam. Right? He survived Winchester. Right? And Cold Harbor. He comes home. He goes horseback riding on Culp's Hill. His horse throws him and he hits his head on a rock and is killed. Oof. How ironic is that?
Yeah, right.
That happens.
Yeah.
That you go through all that, and it's like fate's going to take you no matter what.
That's right. It's your time. It's your time.
And so I guess to me that's probably the most ironic story. Now,
that is, but it's almost like he's one of the lucky ones, because there are a lot of men dying. Horribly violent ways, and the horseback ride is pleasant.
Yeah, and we get this. When I say wilderness, all right, we don't know where many of those boys are buried. Uh-huh. So what happened to them?
Yeah.
All right, the fire.
Right. Burned up.
Right. Maybe they're buried as an unknown.
Maybe they're just ash.
But I think about 8, 4 are burial location unknowns. When I went and researched, because again, I went into depth on some of these people. Monocacy. All right. And so we get Barker, Cooley, Gwynn, Gwynn Farm, right? Hoffman's Ridge. All right. Livingston.
Hoffman's Ridge. Where is that?
That is East Cave.
Okay. Gotcha.
There's a road there or whatever, so it's that family.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Are they related to C.W. Hoffman?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
No. I think that's the farmers.
Okay.
All right, that are here afterwards.
Oh, gotcha.
Who and I think the family, there was a great guy that's now passed away that owned the farm on East Cavalry Field. He was a Hoffman.
Okay.
All right, so, it's from that area. Elijah Sheets, Sergeant. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's another one of the Sheets. Now I'll get back to the brothers. I think, what time do we have here?
Oh, you got time.
Okay. So, third Winchester, because first and second Winchester wasn't enough. We have to go a third time. Right? Beck. All right? And now things are...
Another Beck?
Yeah. Now things are winding down. Fisher's Hill. All right? Daniel DeWalt. Cedar Creek. It's not over yet. Oh, my gosh. And that's Jacob Grove. And then White Plains, John Theodore Pfeiffer, the captain's brother. All right?
Captain's already gone.
All right. And then the last one, Sailor's Creek, and that's Eliza and Hartzell.
Eliza?
I'm sorry, Elias.
Elias.
Elias. I'm sorry.
Like Elias is a strange name for a guy.
Yeah, I got you. Elias. All right. My usual rounds of mispronounce and mess ups.
Right.
All right, but I mean that gives you a picture, and I just want to get back in this one and the impact of 1 or 2 or 3, and you feel sorry for the neighbor. and then the impact of 6 and 8.
Yeah.
All right. And then they're so happy when taper. Now remember that I just did killed in battle here. I did not do die of illness.
Of disease, right?
Okay.
So that wasn't. So how many? Do we know how many Gettysburg? Okay. I asked you this before. The answer is 168
Right.
that are on the monument.
Right.
Okay. But it's at least 168, and those are all died in battle or died during the war?
Died during the war.
Okay, so
All right,
that could be
that's
disease,
right,
combat.
And folks ask, and what's my guess? You know, I mean, we got 4 companies there that I'm watching in particular, plus others. All right.
Well, wait, before you give us your guess, how many men from Gettysburg enlisted in the service?
That's where I'm going. I
Okay.
think Adams County Historical Society said as many as 3,000. But here's the trick. All right. Some of these guys they're in a 30-day unit,
Right.
and then a 1-year unit, and
Yeah.
then a unit for the war.
Uh-huh.
So they enlisted 2 or 3 times. Many of these guys that are killed, that was their 2nd or 3rd enlistment.
Okay. So it's not he goes away once, and as far as we're concerned, that's one
Yeah.
enlistment. We're counting every time he re-enlists.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So what do we get one from
So,
here?
Do we know? Okay. So the number 2,400 that we use for the population of Gettysburg
Right.
was the 1860 population, correct?
Right.
So that includes men of fighting age.
All of them.
So obviously a chunk of them are going to go if they're eligible at that age.
So, and I heard somebody else estimate that by 1863, there's 1,600 people in town.
Okay, that's where I was going to go.
Right.
So when we say,
Right.
a town of 2,400 is now, burdened with 20,000, it's actually a town of 1,600.
And most of them are women.
Yeah, and children.
Right.
So women and children and old people
Right.
now have to deal with caring for 20,000 wounded.
Oh, here's one that survives the war. Major Benner. Right?
Okay.
All right. Now, he is home at his uncle's house on Baltimore Street recovering from wounds from 1862 campaigns. And the Confederates show up. So his uncle, I think the way the story goes, his uncle hides him in a wagon under a blanket and, heads to Cemetery Hill, which becomes behind the Union lines.
Right.
All right. It's just one of those things, all these bits and pieces
Yeah.
of these stories coming together
Yeah.
for all this. So I'm going to, folks ask me, and I say, 600? Is there 600 boys? And remember, the enlistments from the county are 3,000.
Right.
All right.
Oh, from the county.
From the county.
Oh, okay.
From the county are 3,000.
Okay.
And some of those are triplicates. So
So you're saying 600 maybe from the town?
Yeah, and so Benner goes back. That's one enlistment. I have another one who is home, and he's served for a year. He's out of the service. He's in Gettysburg, and on July 3rd, he goes over to a neighbor's house, knocks on the door, and that is Middle Street. And the Confederates are up on the ridge, and the Union Army is on Baltimore Street, and so he got shot. And he will again then he'll re-enlist, but he'll re-enlist in the Iron Brigade Band.
Oh, okay.
All right. And so that's 2 enlistments.
Yeah.
So I'm just giving an example. And there's some others here. If I went into their file, I'm going to find those.
So
Yeah.
that I would. That's a lot of work to try to figure out like exactly how many men.
Yeah,
because you can't go by re-enlistment.
And listen, I actually have the data for the killed part. I don't have the data for all of it.
Right.
For all that.
So, so back to killed then. So we have 168 that's on the monument, and for those of you joining us late, if you're watching live, it's the monument is on East Middle Street at the GAR Hall.
Right.
And it has 168 names on it. It is not including now, and that's men from Adams County, not Gettysburg, correct? Right. And that does not include African American men who joined up. Others.
All right.
Bald men, for example. They didn't like bald men back then.
And here.
Now, who are the others? Just people
Harvey
that got...
Clay Sweeney is not on the
like
monument.
Harvey Clay Sweeney.
Right. And he's
Henry Clay, not Harvey.
Harvey Sweeney's his dad.
Yeah.
Henry Clay Sweeney.
Okay.
All right. So he and his brother are working in Illinois they joined Illinois' unit, and he's killed out there. And I don't know why he doesn't make it a monument. All right, there's another one. Everybody knows the Daniel Lady Farm. All right, his brother, Amos J. Lady, is Company K, 101st Pennsylvania, a regiment where other guys, there are men from the 101st Pennsylvania in the GAR. So I don't know how this one gets mixed. All right, but he is killed in August of 1964. So that's Petersburg. Right? So he's killed in that campaign, the Overland campaign toward the end of it.
Yeah.
Right? He's not on the monument. All right, and so I know I'm going to find more.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of dumb luck.
Right.
So let's see. We talked about Sandow. All right, let's do and a couple of these personalities. Pennsylvania Reserves Private Creamer. All right. Now, he's a coachmaker in Adams County when he enlists. So on his enlist when he says coachmaker. I can't find any of his family contacts. Right, so I don't know who his parents were. All right. He enlisted in July 19th, 1861 at Camp Wayne, Westchester, in Westchester County.
Okay.
So he doesn't even enlist in Adams County, but he's supposed to be a coachmaker in Adams County. He's wounded on July 2nd, 1863 at the Battle of Gettysburg. He dies.
Eventually.
All right. He will die of a skin infection at Mount Pleasant General Hospital in Washington, D.C. He's buried at the U.S. Soldiers and Airmen's Home National Cemetery in Washington. There's a half a dozen Gettysburg boys in that cemetery.
Yeah.
It's not a big cemetery.
Right.
That's where Lincoln would go. It would drive, to the soldiers' home.
Yep.
All right, and so it's their cemetery, and there's several Gettysburg boys there. So I just wanted to point him out. Jacob Stauffer. All right. So Kramer's Pennsylvania Reserves. So he's the one that's wounded here, and he'll die of his wounds, but he won't die of his wounds until November. Right? I'm sorry, I did it wrong. No, December.
Well, either way, he's agonizing for all that time.
So he's wounded on July 2nd, and he's in the hospital in D.C. with a skin infection, which he probably got in the hospital at Gettysburg, right? Because we just pass that stuff around. And so that's just, the one, that's the one Gettysburg soldier that's killed as a result of the Gettysburg battle other than Sandow. Jacob Stauffer, all right? Jacob Stauffer is a son of Elijah and Magdalene Stauffer. His wife was Georgiana Little Stauffer. So Little family is prominent in the area, all right? They had 3 children. He worked as a carpenter before the war, all right? I think he's friends with, oh, come on. Blank face, Ken. So anyway, let me get this.
Want me to just throw out names?
Schimmelfennig, the house where Schimmelfennig's at.
Garlack.
Okay, so I think he's friends with Henry Garlack.
Okay.
All right, and I think that at the time of the battle, his wife is renting a room in that vicinity.
Okay.
All right. But with that said, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's stuff running around there, and every once in a while a mouse dies. So Georgia, all right, so it's July 3rd, if the story's right, and the Confederates have left the lower end of town, but they're still on the Baltimore Street Hill. They're still up here around us. And she comes out with a pitcher of water to give to the 58th New York soldiers, and shots fired. And so she's one of the civilians wounded.
Okay.
All right? So she's wounded in the leg.
Is she the one who is wounded through the hip?
Right.
And supposedly, is this the one where her husband comes back on leave and supposedly gets her pregnant? She's shot through the hip.
Right, and whether it's a husband or a neighbor, it's still that same time, right? I don't know.
So you think maybe before being shot through the hip?
The postman, they keep changing postmen. But the husband, he's captured on November 27th, and he dies in Andersonville Prison. There's a lot of Gettysburg boys that die in Andersonville Prison too. I have a separate list.
George Shriver's one of them, isn't he?
Right. Yeah, I have a separate list of that, but not enough time for today. Balthazar Benner. All right. Okay. So fun. Again, my favorite Gettysburg name, Balthazar Benner.
Balthazar's a great name.
That's great. His brother is Daniel Benner. His brother's wounded, right? That's why he's here in Gettysburg and not out in Illinois. He's also an Illinois regiment.
Okay.
Right? He's staying at, again, Jacob Benner's house on Baltimore Street. That's the one that they smuggle out of town under a blanket.
Okay.
Balthazar watches this. Watches his brother. Balthazar is 16. After the battle, he goes over to Cashtown or Chambersburg and enlists in the 15th PA Cav.
Okay.
All right. He will be killed at Monocacy, and he's not 18 yet.
Oh.
Okay.
I hate hearing those.
Right. The 161st Pennsylvania, I said that earlier, drafted militia. All right. Private Albert Klingel.
The Klingel Farm.
Yep. All right. And spelled 3 different ways. All right. Son of Daniel and Sarah Klingel, Mountjoy Township. On the register of death for volunteers, he died of typhoid fever in the General Hospital at Fortress Monroe. Again, a lot of Gettysburg deaths there, too. When I say a lot, I'm talking about 8, 10, something like that. A cluster of names there. He's listed on the muster out roster with company on 7/24, but he died a few days before. So they left him on the roster to get his muster out pay. Okay? I guess. He's buried in Hampton National Cemetery, Hampton Roads, Fort Monroe.
So somebody in the comments section asks if these names are on the PA monument. Then the answer to that would be that if they were here,
right,
they would be.
Company K is.
Company K is here.
Right, but the other companies aren't.
Right. So
I don't think the 87.
Not all these names. Now, if you're asking what monument are we talking about, it's the monument that is in front of the GAR Hall on East Middle Street in town. And that's specifically Adams County men, but not all of the Adams County men. But yes, you would get some of these names on the PA monument from the 30th Pennsylvania.
Right, that was for sure. The other one,
Company K.
Yeah, 138th is not here. 101st is not here. 165th is not here. 87th is not
right.
here.
Now, but Company K only lost one guy.
Right.
But the Pennsylvania monument has everybody's name.
The whole company's
whether
name.
Whether you lived, died, or whatever.
Right, and I don't.
Some guys who weren't even here are on that.
Well, some of the campaign. I have to go back and look at the rule, and we know that. In the enthusiasm, they put a lot of names on there that weren't at Gettysburg, so they took them off.
Yeah.
You can see where names have been removed.
Right.
I don't know how far along the campaign before and after Gettysburg, if the unit comes in, because all the units that fight before and after Gettysburg aren't at Gettysburg.
Right.
Right, and so that's a good question. I already mentioned Isaac McLean dying at, and he's also in the Hampton Road Cemetery. All right, so we got that one. Lieutenant Valger. All right, mention him. Jack Scully, we don't have to go. Oh, here's one. Private Hill Tawney.
Hill Tawney.
Ezekiel, nickname Hill.
Okay.
All right. Now, he's born in Adams County. He was the son of John Tawney and Lydia Tawney. He was the youngest of 7 Tawney children. See where I'm going? 3 of his brothers lived on Wolf's Hill at the time of the battle.
Okay.
3 of his brothers also served in the Army. Perry John Tawney, 87 Pennsylvania. Charles Zebediah Tawney, 1st Pennsylvania Reserves. John Henry Tawney, 21st PA Cav. Bells, right? Okay. Before the war, he was a laborer, enlisted on February 20th, 1865. Right? His brothers have already gone to war. All right. And so he enlists in Chambersburg. He's probably lying about his age, so I have to check on his age on that. 46. He's born in 1846. So, anyway, he enlisted in Chambersburg. Oh gosh, accidentally shot in the head.
Oh.
We have 3 soldiers from Gettysburg that die because of gun accidents.
Really?
3 of them.
He's 17.
One. Right. And
Another
Front Royal.
one. It's,
Okay.
You shouldn't let these kids play with the guns.
They brought him back. He's buried in Evergreen. His family brought him back.
Okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Coles Cavalry, Sergeant Shriver. George Washington Shriver. All right. And then, wow. Okay, I forgot about this guy. Morentz Tavern. John Morentz. John Morentz Sr. All right, and of course, what is Morentz Tavern? Oh, yes. There's
John Reynolds.
Right, Reynolds is there, and Buford has the second time made contact with Confederates.
Right.
He's got to talk to Howard about the plans for the next day. That's all there.
Right.
All right, but there's another part of the story, and I find it even more interesting. All right, so Corporal John Moretz, all right, John N. Moretz, born in 1818, so he's no youngster. All right, and the name's spelled three different ways. What a surprise! John Nicholas Moretz, and Nancy Ann Stockslager. Moretz.
Wow.
Stockslager.
The hell kind of name is that?
She wanted to get married to somebody right away.
She's looking for Millers or.
All right, and so John Sr. operates Morentz Tavern, where the historic events occurred. All right, but 1860 census, John's occupation was farmhand for his dad. All right, he lists on August 31st, 1861, at Greenmont.
Greenmont.
Where the fire station is. Down
okay.
down the Emmitsburg Road, right?
Yeah.
Right there. That's he went up the street and enlists.
Yeah.
All right.
By the way, New Year's Day they have a great pork and sauerkraut buffet.
Okay, he was 43 years old when he enlisted. All right, now that's all right. Okay, so we'll get to 1861 in August. I think Dad has heart trouble. It's the way this plays out, right? So, May of 1862, John Morentz is listed as deserted, right?
Uh-huh.
I think he goes home because Dad's had a heart attack.
Okay.
All right, I'm speculating on that, but the way this reads out, it sounds like 1, 2, 3 heart troubles.
Okay.
Right? All right, he returns to the regiment in March of 63. Now, I want you to know, when they put out the desertion mark, okay, it doesn't sound like they really care about him, but he took a horse and saddle, and they're really mad about that.
Okay.
That ends up in the muster roll. When he deserted on such and such, he took his horse and saddle. All right, so they were really upset about that. He returns to the regiment in March of 1863.
Okay.
All right, so now it's spring planting. Evidently, Dad's able to start spring planting here in Gettysburg.
Uh-huh.
All right, and he's enlisted again as a deserter on June 12th. All right.
Okay.
That tells me that maybe Dad worked too hard. All right, and now he's told his son, well, I need you home.
Right.
All right, now, he deserts in Kearneysville, Virginia. I don't know where that's at, but I'm assuming it's not closer than, 80 miles, right? He's listed again as returning to service on 7/6/1863.
Okay.
But there's a story to that.
Okay.
In June, he's up here, doing spring planting or harvest. Maybe he's bringing a hay crop that early. I don't know, but he's working on the farm. And now, oh my gosh, the whole Yankee Army's coming. All right. So he hides east of Emmitsburg in the woods, probably along Carroll Track Road, a place where he would have gone hunting as a kid.
Okay.
All right, what happens there? On the 28th, out pops the Alabama infantry, and there goes Buford's guys after him. They don't get any reps, but oh my gosh, we got ourselves a deserter. So he's listed as back in service on 7/6 at the age of 45.
So how
Okay, so he gets captured.
But how did they figure out he's a deserter? Clearly he's not wearing his uniform.
Well, no, he probably still is wearing his uniform. I did that wrong.
Oh.
Okay, so he's listed as deserter again on the 12th, all right? The Alabama troops get him, not Buford.
Okay.
The Alabama troops get him,
Okay.
all right? And so he's listed as back in service on 6 because he's a prisoner.
Okay.
Okay, so he goes from deserter to prisoner.
Oh, I see.
All right, and then so he's and again they're not sure about the capture date between the 7/3 or 7/6. So the Army's going to put it to their favor and say 7/6.
I see.
Okay?
I see.
All right, I think it was before the 3rd, but that's okay. So he dies in November 15th, 1863, at Hospital 21 in Richmond. The cause of death are listed as typhoid fever, pneumonia, and dysentery. There's no record of his burial.
What a way to go. No record of his burial.
No record of his burial.
So that's a Confederate hospital.
Right.
Hospital that he's died in. Okay.
So, again, maybe one of the unknowns.
What a horrible pneumonia, dysentery, and what was the first thing?
Typhoid.
God,
why can't we have typhoid?
Oh my God.
All right, how much time do we have?
Like 5 minutes.
All right, okay. I'll do this real fast then.
Okay.
Okay. McKinney families, 3 brothers. All right. 2 die in the war. Pfeiffer family. All right. All right. Thaddeus dies. The others survive. No. Thaddeus and John, 2 brothers die. 2 out of 4 die.
Okay.
Sheets. The uncle dies.
Right.
2 die. 1 Myers cousin dies. And then 2 die after the war.
Okay.
Okay. Of those, right? And we can go deeper in these another time. Sleigh ball. All 3 brothers joined the 138th Pennsylvania. And so, what do we got with that? 1 dies of disease in the barracks in 1862. The other dies at the wilderness. Steinhauer, same story. We're going to get several boys, and then they're going to have multiple deaths. All right, Witoski, I mentioned them. 2 of the Witoskis, there's 4 boys that served in the war, and they 2 of the 4 boys is killed during the war. They bring their bodies home and bury them in Evergreen, which I think is amazing. Then possible is Ford family. Eli Ford and Z Ford. I can't tell if they're brothers or cousins. But I just went through this real fast. All right, think about the impact here that I left out Eldon. All right, 3 brothers. There are 5 brothers in the Army, and one's killed at Petersburg, one's killed at Wilderness, and 1 dies at. So they lose 3 out of 5 boys. Little family again. All right, 2 little brothers die in the war. Dad enlists. Lies about his age. They finally kick him out because he's too old. Right? But, okay. And then Marx brothers. 2 brothers died during the war.
Now,
So-
the Little family, is that the one that owns the Round Top?
Yes.
Little Round Top?
Yeah. So, no. All right. Here's a funny story. If I got this right, all right, one of the Littles marries a young lady whose dad lives in the blue house on Chambersburg Street that has a yard. All right, so I'm not going to remember the name of it. But he's the one that owns that property on Little Round Top. He's the one that logged. His son-in-law would have been there. Right? So there would have been Littles working on that.
On Little Round Top.
Right.
But it's not called Little Round Top because it was owned by Little.
No, because then the Biggs family, that's why they named Big Round Top.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, again, it's just a different perspective of looking at things. I have more depth on these people and more details because I was fortunate enough to find that information. Many die in Washington hospitals. Many die of disease. And disease and death. Maybe that's a whole nother episode. Who knows?
Well, you could hire Ken
Yeah.
to take a tour of Gettysburg, and I'm sure he could show you where all these guys, or as many of these guys as possible, lived, right?
Yeah.
And how do people get a hold of you to do a tour?
443-324-1936 or look up, search Gettysburg Town Tours. All right, and you'll see me.
You have a Facebook page, don't you?
Reluctant Witnesses, right? And some of the website will say Reluctant Witnesses on it also.
Yeah.
For the tours.
So you can find them that way. Reluctant Witnesses, Gettysburg Town Tours, and that's it. You don't have you do have a website.
Yes.
Okay, you do. Okay.
Gettysburg Town Tours.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. Okay, if you look that up, all right, I have that domain name.
Domain name.
Yeah. Yeah. King's Dominion.
Okay. So, okay, so you have GettysburgTownTours.com or .org or .net or
.com.
Okay, .com, and then you can find Reluctant Witnesses on Facebook. Don't ask why there's 2 different names, right?
Right, because
we're not asking that question.
Right. Yeah, and this is because we started out with.
But he's going to answer it anyway.
Reluctant Witnesses was the first tour.
Okay.
All right, and that was the families on the south end of Baltimore Street. Now it's 8 tours.
Okay.
Right, depending on what you want, and again, the domain name. Right, but once you see that, then you'll see that again, Reluctant Witnesses or anything else. And look, if you just look at my name,
either way, or you look them up, right? Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yes, it's very hard to find me.
Yeah, right. Well, Ken, thank you very much for coming on and doing this. And for our first lieutenants who are watching, thank you for watching. And for those of you watching free on Facebook, or I'm sorry, on YouTube, this is just a little taste that you get. You know, the guide exam's coming up in December, and a lot of people are guides who are patrons, and they say, you know, they say this to me. They say, Matt, you need to start telling people that if they want to practice for the guide exam, you got hundreds of episodes here that'll help them do it. So we have hundreds of episodes over on patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg, and some guides claim that it might help you prepare for the exam.
It will.
I mean, I don't know, Ken. I don't know. That's you know, that's not what we set out to do. But if that's what it can accomplish, then good.
You know, everybody is, and of course I've read the books. All right, and I look, I'm dyslexic. You know, okay. I mean, I read things backwards. It's just crazy. But oral listeners, if you go through these, day one, day 2, day 3, the campaign, and the programs that we had afterwards, the hospitals, you know, I gave you when I did the hospital program, that was the aftermath.
Yeah.
If you got the information out of there, you know, whatever page, you know, most of the information is probably going to be there.
Yep.
Right. And then so, you know, for those that are oral learners, or to reinforce what you've already digested, you know, this is one of the places.
That's a good point. Some people do learn better by listening as opposed to reading.
Right.
And so, yeah, this could help you for that. And, you know, I don't know how many hundreds of episodes there are, but we've been putting them out since December of 2019. So we've got quite a bit of episodes over here for you to go back and listen to. And they go way back. And there's everything. There's guides. There's rangers. There's authors. There's Ken. Who else?
That falls under category of oddballs I found on the street, right? Yeah.
Just stray animals I've picked up on the way to the studio.
But, you know, and look, my little job description is streetwalker, isn't it?
Yeah. Technically, yes, you are a streetwalker. That's right. So we have streetwalkers. We have all types of people on the show here, and even if you're interested in the movie history, because, you know, from what I hear, I'm not a guide, but guides tell me that they get a lot of questions about the movie. We have interviews with the actors. We were the first in this town to be interviewing the actors. So all I have to say is we would appreciate your support over there, and I think you'll appreciate all the work we've been doing for you, unbeknownst to you, over the last 4 or 5 years. So that's all. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye. All right, Kenny. Well done.
Well, good.